Good evening, everybody. This is Mayor Cornell Harvey. Sitting beside me is Commissioner Julie Martin. Online is Commissioner Johnny Cason and Mayor Pro Tem Felicia Harris. Commissioner Williams will be here shortly. I'd like to call to order of the Brunswick City Commission work session Wednesday, December 15th. It's a hybrid meeting, virtual teleconference, and we have 2 items on our agenda for this evening. So we'll get right to it and go ahead and start. Presentation. Number 1, Jim Ritchie, Vice President of Whitman, Raygard and Associates, LLP, to give a presentation on transit system recommendations. Sir, if you're on board, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, sir. Hopefully, if you would please let me know that the screen sharing is started.
Yes.
All right. I'm going to tell you about the Brunswick transit system recommendations for the transit system. We have been working on this with you for about a year. We did share this same series of slides with the Finance Committee earlier this month. The agenda for this evening is just to recall that we had talked with you all in August at the City Commission workshop where we talked about the alternatives, some of the essential criteria, and some of your questions. Then I'm going to go through the tentative transit proposal and ultimately the implementation plan. Now, in August, we shared with you 4 ideas for transit service. The first idea was a fixed route bus service with 3 fixed routes that would serve the city and much of the county, including a route to St. Simons. We thought in that plan, it would require a Glenn County share of around $809,000 and a city of Brunswick share of $878,000. Then we looked at a microtransit proposal. And the idea with the microtransit is it uses a small vehicle and it uses an app where customers are able to directly order the service and also to pay their fares on the service. We thought the service might be mainly within the city of Brunswick and would have a local share of around $800,000. The third idea was demand taxi, where we would use your local taxi companies to provide the service. And we think it would have a local share of $250,000 to $350,000. And the fourth alternative was a city-only fixed route bus service with 2 routes that we thought would have a local share of around $635,000. Now, we never expected that one of these alternatives would be solely picked, but that it might very well be a hybrid alternative. Now, as we talked about the alternatives, what we really heard was, first of all, that the plan needed to be Brunswick scale. It needed to be service that would be productive for the needs of the city residents. It had to be a service that would be well utilized. Second, the service must be sustainable. It must be affordable by the city in the long term. We also recognize that if a transit service is added, we need additional infrastructure, improved sidewalks, shelters, transit hubs, certainly bus stops. And that if the transit service was to be successful, it needs to be in partnership with the county, with major employers, the college, the hospital, and especially the hospitality industry. Now, the questions that the City Commission raised in August was, first of all, what is the level of public engagement that we had done? And at that point in time, we had intentionally not gone through public engagement because we wanted to brief the City Commission first. Now we have, and we're going to report to you on public engagement. You also asked questions about the infrastructure bill and what that would mean. And then we talked a little bit more about work trip and commuting patterns. So those are the 3 things that I'm going to share with you this afternoon. First of all, for public engagement, we decided to put together a very brief introductory video about the transit services. It was placed on your website as a way for people to learn about the Brunswick Transit Implementation Study. We also had a 9-question survey, and I'll go through those results in just a minute. But first, let me tell you about some of the focus groups or interviews that we had. Now, with city staff, we set up 7 focus groups or interviews with a total of 12 participants, primarily employers, social service agencies, the Housing Authority, Sea Island, Jekyll Island, the college, and health system folks. And really, we heard some very broad themes. First of all, there's a need for public transportation in Glenn County that extends well beyond the city limits. Service to destinations in the county and the city make the most sense. One of the things we heard quite a bit about is that their lack of transportation is a major workforce barrier for hospitality employers on the island. And also within the city and the surrounding area, the community sometimes has trouble getting to healthcare appointments. The college also felt that residents could attend the college if there was reliable transportation, and that students would also certainly benefit from a transportation service to reach shopping and recreation benefits. Now, in the survey, 9 questions, also detailed in a number of ways, but I won't go through all the survey responses for you, but I wanted to look at 4 key survey responses. First one, we asked a question of, are you aware of other people in Brunswick who missed trips because of a lack of transportation? Out of 304 responses to the survey, 78% said yes, they were aware of other people in Brunswick who missed trips because of a lack of transportation. Those 304 respondents also helped us to understand how important do you think it is for Brunswick to offer public transit service to its residents and visitors. 67% thought it was very important. 17% said somewhat important. So roughly 85% of the respondents thought the transit service or a transit service in Brunswick was either very important or somewhat important. Now, we had 7 selections that people could make for ranking trips, the trip priority. And out of 7, jobs was the highest ranked at 5.18 out of 7. And seniors and low income was next at 4.48. Trips to higher education and youth were also very important. Now, of these 304 responses, I thought it was also interesting, where did people live? And you'll see the blue box shows where, or the blue shaded columns show where people live. A third of respondents, 116, lived in the city of Brunswick, 54 in St. Simons, another 93 elsewhere in Glenn County, 2 in Jekyll, and 17 in other areas. But where did they work? Roughly half were in Brunswick and St. Simons, and a strong number of employees elsewhere in Glenn County. We thought we had a good balanced survey that told us that many citizens believe there is a real need for transit in Brunswick and Glenn County. Your question about the transit funding is, what does the now signed infrastructure bill mean for public transportation? The American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials had an analysis of the bill dated September 15th of 2021 that I used just to try to highlight what's important. First of all, the urban formula. Brunswick, Glenn County is a small urbanized area using funds from the 5307 program. We think that will go up by about 30%. There's also the potential to use funding from the 5310 program, the Elderly and Disabled Formula program, which will go up by 47.5%. Now, the new bill really places an emphasis on low or no emission buses. That program is remarkably growing. And I also wanted to identify there might be some opportunities in the future for some rural or small urban ferry boat service. Now, the other thing that we should recognize that is the structure of the federal transit program generally didn't change. It's 80% federal and 50% of the net cost of service on operating that would apply to your transit service. But the Brunswick urbanized area and the census are changing again. Every 10 years, of course, we have a US Census. And we should know in the early part of next year what will happen with the urbanized area boundaries for the Brunswick urbanized area. Will the urbanized area jump to St. Simons, or will it remain roughly where it is for just the city of Brunswick and the northern suburbs? We'll know in spring of 2022, but the urbanized area boundaries will dramatically change the amount of operating and capital assistance, and I think increase the amount of operating and capital assistance that will be available. So the immediate news from the infrastructure bill is the urban formula is going up by 30%, and we're likely to have a significant growth in the amount of federal funding based upon the urbanized area boundaries. Now, where are you today with the grants? You have a approved grant through the CARES Act that's roughly $800,000 that was for 5 buses, shop equipment, and security cameras, all 100% federally available or federally funded. Now, going forward, you will want to use your 5307 projects. Generally, the funding is available on an 80% federal and in some cases a 10% state match. On the left of the screen are the type of eligible projects. And on the right of the screen is the annual appropriations that were made for 2017 through 2021. The federal 5307 funds are generally available for 5 years after appropriation, and GDOT has the authority to move them between urbanized areas in the state. So I won't promise you all of those funds are available, but there should be significant funds available, and your bank that GDOT is holding for Brunswick if you in fact decided to move forward. Now, you asked about the commute trip analysis, and this map, this shaded color map, just shows you the areas that we used in calculating the work trips. Now, the work trips come from data reported to the US Census by employers filing their unemployment insurance taxes. Each month, employers file their unemployment insurance taxes. Generally, it's 1% of payroll that goes into the unemployment insurance fund, and they will report where the employees live and where they work. And so that data is really used to estimate the commute trip patterns. Now, this matrix shows generally the home locations and the work locations for the workers in this analysis area. Total of 44,000 employees and jobs in the area. In Brunswick, they'll take you to the first column. For folks going to jobs in Brunswick that live in Brunswick, there's roughly 1,367. In Brunswick, living in Brunswick, or living at St. Simons and working in Brunswick, there's 1,352. The largest area coming into Brunswick for jobs is for other Glenn County folks, about 5,600 that come from other Glenn County, and for outside Glenn County, about 4,600 come to jobs in Brunswick. Total of 13,000 jobs are in the city of Brunswick. You'll see the St. Simons the Jekyll, and the other Glenn County. What's important, though, here is for Brunswick residents, it's not only important to get to Brunswick, but St. Simons and other Glenn County are really important work trip destinations that we might be able to serve with transit. Now, after we've gone through the public engagement, the cost evaluation, we've had some conversation as well with Coastal Regional Commission, and certainly extensive conversation within city government. We're ready to make a recommendation. And what we think we should recommend to you is a on-call microtransit service, very similar to a Lyft or an Uber service that would be in the city and the adjoining area closest to the city. It's really important, though, when we create a microtransit service that we not go too far. We only have a certain number of vehicles. And if we take trips too far, then we're unable to meet reasonable service standards. And that's why the service area is relatively constrained. We think a route that is a flex route should operate between Brunswick and St. Simon. And this is really a route that has some structure. Every hour or so, or every 30 minutes, the service would run. But the customers would board in downtown and the driver would ask, "Where are you going?" And so after the driver has 5 or 10 people on the vehicle, all will have told them their destination. He will have the flexibility, he or she will have the flexibility to go to destinations on St. Simons. We'll also ask people on St. Simons or for the return trip to make reservations for their return trip. Now, folks, I did actually a service very similar to this in Research Triangle Park, where folks came in from Cary and North Raleigh and from Chapel Hill, and we had them join us right at the middle of Research Triangle Park, and we really just asked, "Where are you going?" And we made the shuttle go to their destinations both morning and afternoon. I think it's a very viable model for a St. Simons flex route. Now, where will the funding come from? We think perhaps the best opportunity is the local option sales tax, the LOST negotiations that you will be having with Glenn County, and perhaps some from St. Simons employers. We suggest an operational partnership where the Coastal Regional Commission would provide the dispatch and the operations and all of the bus operators, but that the city would provide the grants administration, the vehicle maintenance, and the marketing. The service would be a microtransit type service. We would, the city would retain a subscription through one of a number of potential microtransit software providers for the technology. We would use 6 small vehicles, probably operating up to 5 at a time. And these are certainly larger than the typical Uber or Lyfts that often use private vehicles. The fares are something that the city council will need to make a decision on in the future. And we think something in the $3 to $5 one-way fare would be appropriate. But there could be monthly unlimited ride passes and also multi-ride ticket prices. We think it's also important that there would be cash ticket sales through the city and through the human service agencies. But we do think, at least through the app, residents would sign up online with a credit card or some other form of payment. So we wouldn't actually collect fares on the vehicles. Now, the St. Simons Flex route I already mentioned, we are at least have costed it as hourly service from downtown and Winn-Dixie to St. Simons 7 days a week. Trip destinations would be based upon user requests. And we certainly need to change the days of the week, and the frequency would need to change with the actual demand in the season. Now, 3 buses we think would be appropriate, so we'd run 2 with 1 spare. We would have a similar microtransit app that would be used for that service. We would ask the hospitality employers for support. The fares, 3 to 5, maybe a little higher. Similar monthly passes and human service agency ticket sales. So what do we think it would cost? First of all, for the city administration, we think the cost for a transit supervisor and clerk, 2 full-time employees in city administration, and then the supporting software and other things would be about $328,000. The operations themselves, almost $800,000. Again, that is assuming operations through Coastal Regional Commission, and the flex route operations at about $640,000. We think the city would provide the maintenance, and that's at $251,000. We think would be the right cost for the maintenance and would require 2 additional maintenance employees. So about $2 million of operating costs, $130,000 in microtransit revenues, $300,000 almost in St. Simon's revenues. And then we think we can also get some human service agency revenues. So about $484,000 in revenues, $1.5 million in the net cost. You split that with the federal government paying 50% of the net cost of service. Now that's slightly higher than your current appropriation, but I believe the growth in the federal 5307 program would make that viable. And so we'll need about $760,000, maybe round to $800,000 for the transit program. Now, you also have capital needs for the program, and we've now looked at 6 small microtransit buses. The GDOT cost currently through the state contract is $62,500. The 25-foot bus is also would be through the GDOT contract. We certainly would have security cameras. And then we think we're going to need at the city yard bus parking and site improvements, as well as shop tools, and then throughout the city, some bus stop and sidewalk improvements. You already have an approved grant of $800,000, but we would ask, if you decide to move forward, we think you should apply for a future grant of roughly $1 million, which again, we think is available from prior year formula appropriations. Now, the fun part about planning a transit service are the logo ideas and what we call the service and how we brand it. So we've put together 3 ideas, and more, there should or could be many, many more. Now, the first idea of the Brunswick B-line, the idea is to show that it's fast and direct. Now, I was asked to make sure I didn't use Georgia Tech colors as I laid that out. So you can see they're not. But the real idea is to show that it's really a fast and direct service. A second idea is the Brunswick Buzz. And here we show a bus coming from the word buzz. The vehicles are simply buzzing around town and carrying customers where they need to go. And then a last idea is maybe the Brunswick Breeze. And maybe even there we could use this characterized bus as growing from the ease and the breeze. Any rate, ideas, we'll need to vet them, and we think the city council and maybe others in the community will have many better ideas than what we've looked at so far. I mentioned the city yard improvements in the budget. In the short term, with the $158,000 that you currently have, we may want to do some access improvements from Lakewood for the parking, some fence and gate access control, although your public works facility has some offices that might already be available for the transit program. In the midterm, we think you'd need to do a paved parking area and a wash shed, and in the long term, maybe a transit maintenance bay. And really, that $750,000 we have in the budget is for that midterm improvements, the paved parking and wash shed. And certainly, we've got to make bus stop improvements from future year grant request. Now, what does this mean for your organization? First of all, the planning program has developed this proposal at this point and would continue to provide some support, but that the transit program would actually operate out of the neighborhood services group. They would do both the transit grants and compliance, and they would supervise the transit contract. Again, our idea is that the transit contract would be run through the Coastal Regional Commission. And then Public Works would be responsible for the bus maintenance. Now, implementation, you're receiving our recommendations here in December. You will go through a negotiation with the county on the local option sales tax. I don't know that there is a particular deadline on those negotiations, but they're really key to whether the service is affordable in the long term or not. Then after you know where you are with the lost negotiations, we think we should come back to the city council or city commission for the plan adoption. And at that time, to have a negotiated operations agreement, perhaps again with Coastal Regional Commission, a vehicle procurement proposal, a technology procurement, and a marketing plan. Then if you were to move forward, you would consider the bus or the public works improvements, maybe doing design work and then bidding that after you have grant approval in 2023. Same thing for the bus stop improvements. And we think the service can start up. It doesn't have to have all of the physical improvements in place to start, but it could start in the fall or winter of 2022. The one thing to really caution is the chip shortage and the automotive industry is making it really hard to get delivery of vehicles. So it might be even a little bit delayed just because of vehicle delivery issues. And with that, I will welcome comments and discussion, and I'll leave the PowerPoint up for just a minute in case you want me to back up to any of the other slides. I welcome your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Ritchie, for that presentation. Commissioners, are there any questions or comments that you have?
I have a couple. I think it was on slide number 18. You mentioned Lakewood.
Yes.
Where is Lakewood?
That's the street behind Public Works, right at the Public Works administrative offices. That I think was, oh no, it was down here, back here. Yeah, it's the back entrance of the city yard is off of Lakewood. And by using the Lakewood entrance, we should be able to fence in a separate area for these buses so the buses can come and go without other Public Works employees having to be there.
And then as far as the route,
yeah,
there's a fixed route that has predictable reoccurring times every day. Well, at least Monday through Friday, the work day, the work week. And then anything beyond that published schedule would be on demand and you need to reserve 24 hours in advance, or how does that work?
The microtransit would have 6 small buses operating in this area that we've shown in blue. And it can be a combination of advanced reservations where people have made a trip request days in advance. That can be subscription trips as well. Or you call, or you actually go to the app and you say, I'd like to be picked up. And we want to try to make it so that we're responsive within 15 to 30 minutes to come and pick up that trip. And when you make your reservation, the software should be able to tell you the approximate time of the pickup. Now, we are planning that as 7 days a week because many of the jobs are going to be 7 days a week. The Sunday hours may be shorter than the other days, but generally we were thinking of 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. as the operating hours for the microtransit. Now, the fixed route, I'm really thinking it starts just to the south of downtown and operates every hour along the portion from downtown to Winn-Dixie, picking customers up with a fixed schedule and fixed stops in that area. And then once it leaves Winn-Dixie, it goes to destinations on St. Simons as needed. But every hour, there would be a trip leaving from the downtown area to St. Simons.
Let me ask this question. That's up to 9 p.m., correct?
I think that's what I put the budget for, yes, to 9 p.m.
So what do we do about the 3 to 11 worker that's picked up at Winn-Dixie, taken over to St. Simons and dropped off at work at 3 p.m. and get off at 11 p.m.?
Yeah, I think one of the things we've got to do is make a decision on whether those are the right hours. It could be more expensive if we extend from 9 until 11 or 9, actually, because if you're picking somebody up after getting off work at 11, we've got to plan the service to run till midnight or even a little bit after. So that's a budgetary issue. It's not necessarily a resource issue on the number of buses. But those are all the sort of implementation decisions the city will want to make as you're making a decision to move forward.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Jim, this is Johnny Cason. What's going to happen to the buses the Coastal Regional Commission has in service right now?
Well, they continue. The Coastal Regional Commission provides human service transportation largely from areas because of the federal funding requirement. They generally don't pick up and drop off, or they drop off in Brunswick, but they are not taking passengers between Brunswick destinations. They would still continue, but I think some of the customers, some of the human service agency customers that live in Brunswick and go to agencies in Brunswick will be able to carry on the microtransit service. And that's also part of the reason to coordinate with Coastal Regional Commission so that can work seamlessly.
So will there be competition there, or?
No, I mean, Coastal Regional Commission receives funding through DHS and can decide, and that they and their dispatchers have to assign trips. And I expect that they would assign some trips because it would be the ones that would be most cost effective within the urban area to this service. But otherwise, Coastal Regional Commission will be in a position to determine who gets the trips. That they're the dispatchers for the human service agency trips.
How will this affect, say, places like the towers out here on Highway 17? They've got their own buses. Is that going to help them?
Well, it would save dollars for those employers that have already made that investment. And some may decide that they still want to have their own vehicles because it makes it certain for their employees. I find that in other places where when we set up a transit service, some employers will push people to the transit service and other employers will still think it's important to run their own shuttle services, but that'll be their choice.
Did we check with any of those kind of folks that have their own buses just to get a feel for what they would do?
We talked with the St. Simons folks. I'm not sure we talked with with a number of hospitality employers on St. Simons and on Jekyll. I don't know that we talked with the employer that you're talking about.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's part of my concern is you've got the huge carrot of federal funding dangling in front of you, but then, you know, if you can't sustain the program and the cost over time, where does that get you? So I guess I would just be curious to know at what point we have been able to engage St. Simon's and Jekyll as far as their workforce demands and providing a service such as this, you know, guaranteeing that it would be used, that, you know, the cost sharing is equitably distributed, not just within the city, but within those other areas.
I think that your concerns are very valid and ones that we've got to continue to work through the implementation. A year ago when we started on this work, my largest concern for you was that your 16,000 person community was really going to have or this was probably too expensive for the city of Brunswick to take on by itself. I think this, you know, the city manager's belief that the loss negotiations provide the opportunity for negotiations with the county. And I think that's really how you make it the ability for the city and the county and the employers, really, because everybody's paying the sales tax, are able to help support the service.
Jim, were you able to check back on the Valdosta system and find any feedback from that?
Well, all we have heard so far is they're up and running. I don't know any more yet on what the ridership and how well it's working. But I will do that, Regina. I'll see if I can't make sure we get some feedback from Valdosta to see how their microtransit proposal or microtransit service is now working.
So they're doing a microtransit service, Jim?
Yes, they are.
Valdosta?
They are.
Similar to what you're proposing here?
Exactly. Yes, sir.
And how long have they been operational?
They have been operational about 3 months, I think. I think they started maybe closer to 5 or 6 months. But what they're doing that's different is that they are using via a microtransit service provider to provide it turnkey. And when we look at the costs, we think it's really expensive that what they've signed up for with VIA. We think you can get more cost effective by using your local partner in Coastal Regional Commission and your own forces. That's really why we actually have lowered the cost from the original microtransit to what we're proposing, because we think you can do it more cost effective than the VIA contract would cost you.
That is VIA?
Yes, sir. I think that's it.
Okay.
Jim, is there a way for us to confirm the funds that you said are available from GDOT for the capital? Is there any way for us to know how much may be, you know, still in reserve for that?
I think we should make that request to GDOT as to what is available of those. And I think John Hunter and I can certainly work to do that.
Well, thank you all for your questions, comments. Thank you, Mr. Ritchie, for the presentation. My question was along the line that Commissioner Martin asked, and also Commissioner Kaysen was alluding to, about why you chose CRC as the people to actually administer our program. And I guess basically you're saying because of cost.
It is really because it's both because of cost and because of expertise. And the Coastal Regional Commission, as I have talked with them, and we have, you know, Coastal Regional Commission had a contractor that was shared with Three Rivers Regional Commission up in Griffin, Georgia. And Three Rivers has been my client for about 3 years. And through that, I've had some interaction myself with Coastal Regional Commission. And I found that I really thought they had the capability through their call center and dispatching to do that for you. And then when I raised that idea with your city manager, Regina felt like they were also a partner worth exploring. I've had some conversations with them. We haven't gotten to the point of a cost proposal, but I think it's worthwhile to engage them in a negotiation to see if it's the right fit.
Okay, but did you list the costs that it would be to partner with to employ the CRC?
I used $50 a revenue hour in my cost estimate, but I think they can actually beat that value in a proposal. So I was trying not to be I was trying to make it so that I gave you budgets that were adequate, but right, you are able to negotiate with them over the pricing going forward.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, you have any further questions?
It's a big undertaking. Huge undertaking.
Nothing ventured, nothing gained, sir.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Ritchie, for that presentation.
Well, thank you so much.
All right. Thank you for partnering with us in getting that done, sir.
All right.
All right.
Make sure how I stop sharing.
Thank you. All right, moving right along, commissioners, as we move on our agenda, our second item on the agenda is Brunswick Glen Joint Water and Sewer Director, Mr. Andrew Burrows, to give a presentation regarding Brunswick Glen Joint Water and Sewer Master Plan. He's also accompanied by the Vice Chairman Duncan, Commissioner Duncan is here as well. Mr. Burrows, the floor is yours, sir.
Are y'all gonna be able to bring up the presentation I sent you? Well, it's posted on your agenda, so I think I sent it to, I think we sent it to Naomi. I don't know.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
Yes, it is on our agenda.
Well, while y'all are pulling that up, Commissioner Duncan is Vice Chairman. He's going to say a few words about the commissioner's perspective and role in the master plan. And so he's going to take a couple of minutes while y'all are pulling that up before I actually get into the presentation. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners, Ms. McDuffie. Thank you for your time on your agenda. We appreciate the opportunity to present to you a very important part of the Utility Commission, and that's our 20-year plan. It's our roadmap as we go forward that identifies the various capital projects that we determined that need attention over the 20 years. Andrew will go into lots of detail in that regard for you. What I wanted to offer is a high level is what part does your commission take in regards to executing the 20-year plan? First of all, it's vetted by the Utility Commission. With Andrew's leadership, we used a consultant to really pull together and grind out the numbers to help determine what those priorities are and also what the funding requirement is. So we vetted that plan. The other is a big responsibility on the Utility Commission is to find the funding. And that's always the interesting part, in my view, is to be able to fund those major projects. And they're not small by any means. We're talking about millions of dollars on numerous of those projects. One of the things that we've done for the community is we were not able as a community to get the SPLOST passed this last time is our Utility Commission. We went out and issued bonds to borrow money to advance the projects that we had listed that the last SPLOST proposal would have supported. And we were successful in doing that. And it won't come at any cost on a monthly basis to our customer base. We were able to backload the cost of that, basically refinance, if you will, our current bonds and the new bond, so that as our bond indebtedness drops off in the next 3 years for what we had prior to this issuance, and then we began to pick up payments on the new bond. So it essentially seamless. There was no increase there. And that in itself doesn't require a rate increase to our existing customers. But I wanted to offer that to you as to what your commission does at the utility. And it's very important to us that we do have a roadmap for success, and that we share that not only with you, but we've shared it with the county, Chamber of Commerce, the Development Authority, and any other interested parties. And so that folks understand that we do have a plan, and we've taken input. We've done the hard work of determining what the needs are. And now the next part is for the Utility Commission is to get that financed. Part of that finance comes through rates. Part of it comes through SPLOST. Part of it has come through securing loans for it. So thought I'd offer that to you as a bootstrap to the details that Andrew will go through, and we're happy to answer questions at the end. Thank you.
Right. So thank you all for having me. As Commissioner Duncan indicated, I'm going to present the nuts and bolts of our updated master plan. I know that as the commissioners for the city of Brunswick, you have to make decisions about community development and investment in the community. And to do that, you need to be confident that we're operating the systems appropriately. So with that in mind, we'll go to the next slide. I'd like to briefly review the last master plan we did. We started it in 2015 and completed it in 2016. And you may remember when that last master plan came out, it created quite the spark in our community. We at times stopped allowing individual homeowners to tie on to the sewer because of perceived lack of capacity issues. We also had to do 2 consecutive back-to-back double-digit percentage rate increases, and bills went up drastically in a 2-year window. So those didn't only affect new development, but those rate increases impacted every water and sewer customer in the city in Glenn County. So that plan that was put forth used the best available information we had at the time. But unfortunately, when we started that process in 2015, Joint Water and Sewer just simply did not have the amount of information necessary about our existing design conditions to actually produce that plan. So we provided the information to our consultant, and they used that information to make projections on that. Also, the plan had what I'll call some aggressive population projections. The projections that the population data that was provided to the consultant, again, at that time, was pre-recession population projections, which my understanding, I was not here, where the Glenn County and the city of Brunswick were experiencing rapid levels of growth pre-recession. And so for the 20-year planning period that the last master plan covered, the average projected growth was 4.3% a year across Glenn County. So they were projecting the Glenn County population at the 2035 planning period to be at 140,000 residents, which we're about 85,000 residents now. So that's quite the rapid growth. And to project that number for water and sewer needs, you ended up with some large figures. So on that note, there was $314 million listed in that plan of need. And in today's dollars, that's about $350 million worth of needs. So we go to the next slide. Our goal is to update our master plan every 5 years. And to do that, we have multiple topics we have to hit. We want to do water and sewer population and flow projections. We want to provide an updated major asset condition assessment, and we want to have both a rehab and an expansion capital improvement plan. So next slide. So the first thing we had to do was get the population and flow projections correct. And those are the basis for many of the projects we have included in the plan. Now, one really key strength we had when we went into this, the city and the county had just recently updated their comprehensive plans within the past couple of years. So those comprehensive plans included updated population projections and updated land use maps. So that allowed Joint Water and Sewer to be aligned with the city and the county at how they saw our area and community growing. So our goal is always to be available and support the city and the county in their endeavors. But to do that, we all have to be singing from the same sheet of music. Having those updated plans just before we did our master plan allowed us to do that. Now, we can't just use the projections directly from the city and county comp plans because not everybody in the city of Brunswick and Glenn County is on both public water and sewer. And particularly in the county, a lot of those customers aren't on, a lot of those residents aren't on either public water or sewer. They're on private wells and septic tanks. So we couldn't just take the direct population projections. So we updated the projections for our specific growth areas, and for 5-year increments that averaged between 0.8% and 1.6%, which if you recall the 4.3% number, this is a much more rational approach to this. And that's about what we've been growing for the past 5 years. We've averaged about 1% growth in the water and sewer. So now that we have those population projections, we had to generate sewer basin and water system specific flow projections. We know that some areas of our community will see more growth than others just because homes are being built there, new businesses are being located. So we don't want to project that 1.6% growth rate over every part of our area just because some of them are built out. We also had to generate flow projections on a per capita basis for water and sewer usage. So on the water side, the per capita water usage rate is 114 gallons per capita day, which is a little higher than what you would see on a national average. But typically on southern states, we do use more water than some of the northern and western states do. So that's in line with what you would see across the state. You also see that per capita sewer number at 177 gallons per capita day. Now there's an obvious question to ask, how do you generate more sewer than you do water? And you can't do that. But that gap is the I&I, the inflow and infiltration, the groundwater and stormwater that gets in our sewer system that we still have to pump through our system and get through the plant, but it's not actually generated by the customer base. So when we projected forward, we used only the water usage number for sewer projections as well, because the rehab plan addresses getting that additional I&I out of the system. So next slide, please. All right, so I'm going to show you 3 slides pretty quickly here. This first one here is the mainland system's water and sewer capacity. Water is blue, sewer is green. You see there, that top darker line is the permitted capacity for the water systems that serve the mainland and the Academy Creek plant. You see abundance of capacity there at both of those facilities, and that second lighter line is the projected flows based off the population and flow numbers that we used there. So you see, even at 2040, the end of the 20-year planning period, we're projected to have plenty of available space at Academy Creek. So scroll down to the next one, St. Simons, same situation. You see it gets a little close on the sewer side on St. Simons, but I will note these numbers on sewer projections included all of the existing I&I staying in there and not making any improvements. So we're being conservative. So we're projecting even at 20 years we have capacity, but that's assuming we don't make any improvements on the I&I. And the next line down at Southport, very much the same capacity on both water and sewer. So what does that information tell us? We've got capacity all throughout our community for the next 20 years, barring a significant industrial facility or a large change coming in. However, if we were fortunate enough to land a large industrial facility somewhere in our community, we can respond to that and get those people's capacity because we have the knowledge of our system to allow those quick decisions to be made. So on the next slide, our consultants did a condition assessment of our major above ground assets. That would be wastewater plants, drinking water wells, elevated storage tanks, and sewer pumping stations. Some common areas that came up were corrosion issues on the sewer side. That's a corrosive environment because of sewer gases. So those showed up repeatedly. And we also noticed that many of our electrical assets on both water and sewer are at the end of their useful life. Now, they did a tabletop analysis on the I&I in the system. And as we've noted, we've got some sewer basins we need to tighten up for I&I. Now, 22 basins rated either critical or high for I&I. And 22 sounds like a large number, but we have over 160 individual sewer basins. So taking 160 and shrinking it down to 22 is a much more manageable way to approach the system. Our consultant did point out that there's been significant improvement in the apparent maintenance activities performed by staff over the last 5 years. The crews that we have out in the field, they work hard. And while they can't always see their own progress because they're in it every day, our consultant did note that that improvement was noticeable to them. So on the next slide, from the projections and the condition assessments, we generated a rehab and expansion capital plan. For the rehab plan, we used an asset management methodology. And if you're unfamiliar with the approach of asset management, it's essentially making sure you're spending money where it can have the greatest impact. So you have 2 factors in that. One of them is called probability of failure, which is basically what's the likelihood of something fails in the near future. So our consultant, through that condition assessment, provided those probability of failure scores on a 1 to 5 scale. Now, 5 doesn't mean it's going to fail tomorrow. It just means if something's 80 years old that's been in the ground, it's much more likely to fail than something that went in last week. And so those would come towards the top. And the second portion of that is called a consequence of failure. Our internal asset management staff has been updating our consequence of failure scores for the last several years. Now, consequence of failure is how bad is it if it fails? Obviously, if a sewer line that crosses Newcastle collapses in downtown Brunswick, that's going to have a much bigger impact on their community than if you're on a cul-de-sac in a small neighborhood, may impact 2 houses. It's a problem we need to address, but it's not going to shut down commerce in the city of Brunswick by doing that. So if you multiply those together, you get what's known as a risk score. And the assets that had the highest risk score were the ones that were prioritized in that rehab capital plan. So what that does is allow us an unbiased way of comparing different asset types, whether it be a water tank or a sewer pipe or a wastewater plant, and also different areas of our community. You know, assets on the South Mainland in the city of Brunswick can be compared versus assets on St. Simons, and we have those methodology to make sure those are done correctly. And this allows us to use our resources where they can be most impactful. So on the next slide, the expansion plan used those area or water basin specific growth and flow projections to determine when and where we might need to expand our capacities, not at the wastewater plant necessarily, but on individual sewer pump stations. We also simulated the projected growth patterns in a hydraulic model to determine how growth may impact existing pressure conditions for existing neighborhoods. And then the last thing we looked at was where it might make sense to try to extend our lines into existing neighborhoods for the opportunity for customers to get off their private wells and septic tanks and onto the public systems. We prioritize those for infill or the areas that are closest to our existing systems. For example, in November, we awarded a contract to put public water and sewer lines in the Arco neighborhood because it's right there by our existing systems, and it made sense for us to move into those areas. Those are the types of projects that are included in the expansion plan. So on the next slide, what does that all mean? Remember, the beginning of the presentation, the 2015 plan was $314 million. The new plan is $189.6 million. Now, $190 million is still a big number, but over 20 years, that works out to $9.5 million a year. Currently, our annual budget for rehabbing our system is $7 million. So we're pretty close to being able to keep up with it now. We just, as Commissioner Duncan mentioned, we issued bonds to keep making progress with the loss of SPLOST on this plan. We were able to wrap that around our existing debt service so that our payments and rates didn't have to change because of that debt issuance. So I think it's safe to assume moving forward, unless there's a huge change in regulatory needs and expectations, this is a plan we can accomplish with minor tweaks. We won't be doing double-digit percentage rate increases. We might have to tweak a little bit here or there, but certainly not back-to-back double-digit rate increases that will impact the consumers in a harsh way. And so on the next slide, what are some takeaways from this information? First, we've made substantial progress in the past 5 years. The staff at Joint Water is committed to the task they've set before themselves, and their effort is paying off. The support of our own commission for funding projects, but also the city and the county commissions through joint projects like Magnolia Park and L Street, and also some other SPLOST projects that we've gotten done, has done a good job of getting us on the right direction. Secondly, our new plan is aligned with the city and the county through their comprehensive plans. Personally, I think that should be seen as a huge win for all of our residents. The city and the county staff work well with us and Joint Water and Sewer, and now we're all pulling in the same direction, which is a win for our residents. Third, with our asset management philosophy, we're now taking a systematic approach to rehabbing our system. We're not going helter-skelter with what's today's biggest fire, but where is it actually needing to be rehabbed at first? So we have this plan and we fully intend to execute it. And finally, as I mentioned, in all areas of our county, we have water and sewer capacity for the entire 20-year planning period. That doesn't mean we won't have to make slight improvements to capacity over the period. If we got a large development or industry that wants to move forward, we'll have to respond to that as it arises. However, we can manage those individually. Our utility has come a long way in the past 5 years, and we've still got improvements to make. Obviously, we have $190 million worth of need, but we're always going to have projects that need to be done. However, there's no reason for the doom and gloom of 5 years ago on the master plan related to our water and sewer systems. We have this plan and we continue support from our own commission. I feel certain that we can continue to make progress. And with that, I will close it and open it up for any questions you might have.
Questions, Commissioners, for Mr. Burrows? A good presentation. I really thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Duncan, as well. To know that this organization is doing extremely good things, and also are even without the SPLOST, they are looking at continuing to improve our community by doing the things that you're doing, taking out the loans and not raising the rates for the ratepayers. That's really something that's really impactful. So, but I really appreciate it, and I also appreciate serving on the board with Commissioner Duncan and you, sir. So we are very fortunate to have a great organization looking out for all the citizens of Brunswick and Glenn County. Any questions, Commissioners, or comments?
I've got a question. This is Johnny Case and Andrew. How many employees do you have now with the Joint Water Sewer? And by the way, this is a really great presentation and pretty doggone solid performance out of you guys. How is it reflecting with employment though?
Right now, we have currently active as of this morning, 134 employees. We are down about 20 people right now, as I know a lot of agencies are working short-staffed. So we're working with about 134 right now. Yeah.
That seems familiar to me. It really does. Got a question for you on First Avenue. There, just before you get to Martin Luther King at the old train station, what's the status of looking at repairing that hump there?
I'm not immediately familiar with what you're talking about, but I'll get with staff and get back with you tomorrow on that once I know exactly what.
I'd appreciate it. I really would. Todd is familiar with it. It goes back a long way, and it really, people are there's going to be an accident there one day. People trying to avoid tearing their car up. And
but was it First Avenue or First Street at MLK?
It's First Street, Julie. Yeah. I think you're right. Thank you.
Yeah.
First Street.
I couldn't quite envision that in my mind. So.
You're right. You're right. First Street.
Commissioner Case, and I'll be happy to check on that tomorrow. I'll give you a call tomorrow once I find out more about that.
That'd be super. Thank both of y'all.
What about the one in Magnolia Park? I mean, College Park. Well,
yes, we did recently go in there and have to do some repair work. Unfortunately, we are behind. I say we are behind. The contractors are behind on paving because of just they had some issues. So I will see exactly where we're at with that. But I know we've cut POs to get that repaired. I just don't know the status of where that is right now.
Okay, good. Regina, would y'all please stay on top of that?
We are actually, I've asked the Public Works to identify any repairs that are needed in regards to joint water and sewer construction in areas around the city, and they're preparing a list so that we can give it to Andrew. And Andrew has been really responsive, always working well with us. And I wanted to just ask you to give, I remember I talked to you a little bit about specifics about the conditions of the system in the city. So if you have any specifics you can give us.
Well, I mean, a lot of the city infrastructure is dated, but we are currently going through all the sewer lines and putting cameras in them, inspecting all of them. And what we found, obviously there are some needs, but it's nothing excessive. We're looking at across the system, less than 20% of the pipes need addressing at this point, and we're doing most of those trenchlessly. So one of the things you'll see coming out probably first quarter of next year is a large cured in place piping project that covers the south of Gloucester area. It's a 4,002 basin. So a lot of the areas down here in front of City Hall and around Old Town, we're going to be lining some pipe in. But the good thing about lining it that way is we don't have to cut up the streets. We can do it trenchlessly. So that'll make a big difference. And then some of the pump stations we went out yesterday, or not went out yesterday. We had a pre-proposal yesterday. We're going to rehab the big pump station right there by on Reynolds Street, 4002, with the mural on the side of it, and also one down by King and Prince. So we're looking at going through those. Again, having the master plan allows us to prioritize those based off of actual condition assessments instead of who happens to be calling the most.
Let me ask you this question. How does this affect tap-in fees? Because a lot of the developers and people that I've spoken with were kind of upset with the rate of the tap-in fee. So is this going to affect that, or is it going to?
It will not affect that. When we did come out, of course, as you mentioned, last time we had the master plan, we came out and we raised tap-in rates substantially as a result of that. Now, what we've done since then is we've changed the commercial type tap-in rates to be based off the meter size instead of off of a multiplier. So used to, if it was $6,800 per what's called an REU, and we'd multiply that by 10 if it was, say, a restaurant that had that level of service, and then it'd be $68,000 to get on the system. Now it's based off the size of the meter. And so it's much more economical to do that. We also have started allowing for residential customers a 5/8 by 3/4 inch meter setup that instead of $6,800 to get on the system, is $2,700 to get on the system. So we've seen a lot. And if you've got a single story home, most of the time that's more than sufficient for what you need. So we've allowed some more cost-effective options, and we're looking at ways, particularly in say the ARCO area, of if we run new water and sewer lines to people, maybe we give them a discounted rate for the first 6 months or 12 months so that they actually start utilizing those assets that we just put in the ground.
Can you give us a quick overview of what the expectations are as far as completion and improvement at Academy Creek wastewater treatment and the improvements and changes that you're making there as far as odor?
Yes. Okay. So the main thing at Academy Creek, we've been working on that since last December. Really, construction really kicked off heavy in January. They're supposed to be completed now into March, early April. There's one, as not to use a cliche, but with supply chain issues, there's one large piece of equipment that was supposed to be delivered in September that is now supposed to be delivered the last week of January. And until it shows up, can't really say for sure when that's going to be here. But that is holding up, I'll say, the odor control improvements at Academy Creek. If you drive by there now, there's a new tower out there, and that will be used for odor control, but we have to be able to enclose that open space to use that. Well, the new screens that we're waiting on, we have to have those in place before we can cover it up. So realistically, you're probably looking at March before that is done, because the screens get here into January. It'll take about a month to get them installed. But once those are installed, then we can make the odor control improvements. And so March, April timeframe, you should be able to drive by Academy Creek and not smell anything.
Andrew, you're saying March of 2022?
Yes, sir. Assuming my screens show up at the end of January.
I would really appreciate if y'all would have literally an open house. Let the community, and certainly we would appreciate an opportunity to come in at that time where you've got everything buttoned down, and just to gain a better understanding of where those dollars went and what those improvements are and what the expectation level is.
Absolutely. We've actually been talking about having, for lack of a better term, a grand reopening of Academy Creek.
Sure.
If anybody wants to go talk about wastewater plants, I can talk about wastewater plants for all day. So come down there. We'll spend as much time as you want to. But yes, we'll be happy to do that once everything's buttoned up. Obviously, it's an active construction site now, so we don't want to have safety concerns, but we'll be happy to show any of you around at that time.
That would be great. That was one thing when I was running for election back in 2011 for, taking office in 2012 was the wastewater treatment plant.
Yes.
So it's good to see that finally coming to fruition.
Well, I'll say not only come to fruition, we've got some staff members at Wastewater that's been there 20 plus years, and they've all told me they've been asking for several of these improvements for the entire 20-year window they've been here. Yeah. And one of them, he was talking about retiring. And I said, well, you can't retire until after you get to use the new stuff we put in for you. You put in 25 years of having to struggle. Now you're going to get some ease. Yeah. Let's just enjoy that. So,
yeah.
Andrew, when do you complete the lift station there on Newcastle Street across from Cut Quick?
It's done.
It's done?
Yes, sir.
They're all out of there?
They are all out of there. There's one warranty item they've got to address, but we actually at our facilities committee meeting today funded the balancing change order for that. So that one is officially completed.
Great. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Well, I have one comment, and that is I've been talking with the Water and Sewer, Joint Water and Sewer, about they are completing upgrades of water and sewer in the ARCO region. And there will be a number of residents who need to tie into the system. And talking about maybe if the city can use some of their CDBG funding to help those individuals tie in with maybe it would allow them to annex into the city as well. So that's an ongoing process that we're doing, and hopefully that will come to fruition, and hopefully the new commission will take that up. But Mr. Burrows, thank you so much for coming and giving us the presentation. Commissioner Duncan, thank you for your comments as well. And with that, I appreciate it very much. We will close out our executive session, work session, and we will commence with our regular commission meeting at 6 o'clock. Thank you so very much, everybody. We stand adjourned. Yeah, I know that. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
When you came back, I remember that. They were saddled. And it hadn't been without bumps and pickups.
Hey, just let you know, in the executive session, I'm going to request variables for the only Ryan and the judge. That's the only people we can do. Okay. Virginia can do some of the people, I'm pretty sure. Some small increases. So, in the executive session, I'm going to recommend
Okay. Have no problem at all with that.
We'll come back in.
Okay.
We finished on time.
Yeah.
Sure. Oh, girl, I made cold up here. So turn the air conditioner on. So you got a hot flat on something.
They won't be on this, honey. They'll come on the city's computer. Unless I ask Kyle to send them. We get on the city computer.
Okay, 2 minutes, everybody. We're gonna move pretty fast. Okay, I'm set.
I was thinking 5 o'clock. I was thinking 5 o'clock.
I'm gonna be out here about 7.
I know this is Mayor Harvey's last time to hit the gavel, right? Or do you, or would you actually be at the January?
Yes. Yes.
Take a seat. Walk out.
See you guys.
Got your bag packed and your bathing suit packed.
I'm
You're
ready.
to go.
Give me a countdown, please. You want to do the invocation? Sure. Okay. Yeah.
PC is a very single mode.
The police will get stuck. Yeah, sure. Jay, I don't know about it. I don't know. Hope he would.
He did.
Do I have a countdown?
If you're ready, we can start the countdown. I'll give you a 10-second countdown.
Countdown.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, I was waiting for them to say we are recording live, but I guess we still are. Good evening, everyone. I'm Mayor Cornell Harvey. Sitting alongside me is Commissioner Julie Martin and Commissioner Vincent Williams. And also online is Commissioner Johnny Cason and our Mayor Pro Tem Felicia Harris. I'd like to call to order of the City Council meeting dated Wednesday, December 15th. This is the hybrid meeting. As I said, we're here in Old City Hall, and the 2 individuals I mentioned earlier are with us virtually. So we will rise for our invocation led by Commissioner Julie Martin, and then our Pledge of Allegiance, which is led by Commissioner Vincent Williams. So please rise, all who are in attendance.
Would please bow your heads. Lord, sovereign God, we thank you for this time of year and that we can focus on the things that really matter, the birth of Jesus Christ, our Savior. And we ask that you would help us to have generous hearts during this season, that we might reach out to those that are in need in our community, because those needs are great. And we thank you for the opportunity to serve our community in full commission and as a city staff. And we ask that you would help us direct this meeting. We ask also that you would protect those in harm's way. We thank you for those that provide service to our community, to our citizens, certainly at the state, regional, and national level. And for all this, we are truly grateful in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So good evening again, everyone. Thank you for attending, and thank you for those of you who are online too as well. This is our last meeting for this fiscal year, this calendar year, and we're glad that you all are in attendance. We have a couple of things here that's going on. Are there any additional deletion to add to our agenda? Hearing none, so we will move right along as quickly as possible, realizing this is the holiday season and people are trying to actually celebrate the holiday season, the birth of Christ, and they are just want everybody to be safe as you celebrate. Excuse me, that's what I wanted to say. So anyhow, we're gonna move right along. Our first item on our agenda is recognition, presentation, and awards. The Georgia Municipal Clerks Association District 12 Director, Ms. Deborah Walker-Reed, is here to recognize GMCA selection of our city clerk, Ms. Naomi Atkinson, for a District 12 spotlight. So, Ms. Deborah Walker-Reed, you can come to the podium. Ms. Atkinson, will you come please stand down front, please?
Thank you for having me here. I'm Deborah Walker-Reed. I am the city clerk also from the city of St. Mary's, Georgia. So I'm very happy to be here to present this to Ms. Atkinson, my colleague. I'm also here on behalf of the Georgia Municipal Clerks Association. I'm on the executive board as well as the district director as of today. And so as the executive board member for the secretary, I would like to briefly, before I present this certificate and letter to Ms. Atkinson, just give you a brief little background. On the training that you send Ms. Atkinson to, I want to make sure you all are aware of how long it takes to achieve some of the certifications that she has achieved. In order to just receive your Georgia certification, it takes over 2 years to actually receive that. Unlike other branches of the military where you're able to do some of the, not the military, I'm sorry, branches of the government where you're able to do majority of your training online, the 99.9% of our training must be done in person. And so since we only hold trainings twice a year, it can take you over 2 years to get that. Then beyond that, Ms. Atkinson has achieved her master's in the Georgia education system. And on top of that, that is a 2-year process on top of that, as long as you do not miss a training. They do not allow you to make up that training. So if you miss that rotation, you have to wait an additional 2 years for that one class to come back around. So as I read this off, and I mentioned some of the things she has achieved, I want to ensure you all understand that she has had to dedicate over 4 years just to get 2 of the certifications that she currently have. Wow. First, I'm going to read off the certificate she'll be receiving. Georgia Municipal Clerks Association Certificate of Appreciation. This certificate of appreciation is awarded to Ms. Naomi D. Atkinson as the District 12 Spotlight for 2012-2021 in recognition of your leadership, professionalism, commitment to education, and the city clerk profession. Thank you for leading the way to better serve the citizens and the communities in Georgia. I also have a letter for her as well. Dear Ms. Atkinson, I'm pleased to inform you that you were selected as the Georgia Municipal Clerks Association District 12 Spotlight for 2021. This designation is only given once a year. Your leadership, professionalism, integrity, and commitment to education and excellence are several of the reasons why you were selected. You were also featured in the Georgia Municipal Clerks Association December newsletter, which was sent to all 537 cities in Georgia. I'm proud to have you as my colleague, and congratulations on this well-deserved honor. On behalf of the Georgia Municipal Clerks Association, Executive Board, and District Directors, we thank you for your exceptional service and dedication to your profession.
Wow.
Woo! Congratulations.
Wow, that's awesome.
Congratulations.
Woo!
So much.
Congratulations. Speech.
Well, District 12 Director Reed, I thank you for the opportunity to be the spotlight for GMA, and the network is so amazing for all new clerks, and it really helped me out when I started. And on behalf of my commission, Mayor Harvey, Mayor Pro Tem Harris, Commissioner Kaysen, Commissioner Williams, and Commissioner Martin, thank you for giving me the opportunity to go train to be better at my craft. Thanks again.
You are the best, I tell you. You are the best.
Awesome.
Good job.
Yes, awesome. You have really done tremendous. I appreciate you keeping us on track, keeping us directly what we need to do, and also personally for me, keeping me on track and on time and on schedule. Keeping my schedule is something that I appreciate more than anything. I tell people all the time, if you're looking to try to get on Mayor Harvey's calendar or Mayor Harvey to come someplace, you better tell Naomi. So, and you do a great job. So thank you. And I know you will continue to do a great job in the future. So thank you. The city of Brunswick really appreciate your service, what you have done and continue to do for us. Okay, let me move right along quickly as I said I would this evening. I thank Georgia Municipal Association, Clerks Association for recognizing one of our outstanding employee that really reports directly to the city council. All right, our next item on our agenda is appointments. The commission and board appoint the pilot commission. There's one appointment, and this is Mr. John Jack McConnell. His term ends January 1st, 2022, and he has requested to be reappointed. Are there any? So, Commissioner, do you have any new appointments, or what do you like to do with this?
I make a
motion to appoint Jack McConnell.
Second.
Thank you all for the motion and the second to reappoint Mr. John Jack McConnell to the pilot commission. Are there any further questions or comments? Mr. McConnell is here in the building too as well, so that's really good. Good to see you, sir. So, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposers? No opposers? Okay, that motion carries unanimously. Madam Clerk, please let Mr. McConnell know exactly when his term begins and ends, and tell him, as we tell him, I tell him myself, hey, wish you all the best. And thank you for doing what you have done so far for the city of Brunswick and for our community, sir. All right. All right, our next item is appointment to the tree board. There's one appointment. And it is
Jill.
Jill Wright.
Who was it?
Jill Wright.
Jill Wright, yes. To point to fill the expiring term of Jill Wright. Her term expires December the 18th this year. And Ms. Wright is petitioning again to be reappointed.
I make a motion that we reappoint Jill Wright to the tree board.
Second.
Okay, motion second for the reappointment of Ms. Wright to the tree board. Any further questions or comments? I'll just say one, the tree board is very important. We are a tree city here. We have trees all over the place in the green city. So it's very important how we approach this and how the people concerned about our green space and so forth. So we got a motion, got a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposers? All right, no opposers, that motion carries. Madam Clerk, please do the same as I instructed for the pilot commission, please. All right, moving right along. Item number 3, public hearing, alcohol beverage license for new license. This is, name of the business is Fox Pizza. The owner is Craig Popple and Ellen Thompson. Location is 1435 Newcastle Street. This is they're petitioning to get a new alcohol beverage license for on-premises consumption of beer and wine with Sunday sales. Our Deputy Marshal Monday is here to present.
Yes, Commission. Mr. Popple has applied for an on-premise consumption of beer and wine with Sunday sales. He is taking new ownership of Fox's Pizza. Review has been completed on Craig Popple and the manager, Ellen Thompson. There's nothing that would prevent them from obtaining a new alcohol license. Ellen Thompson is the current owner of Fox's Pizza and will continue to manage the restaurant. Mr. Popple is here tonight to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, any questions for Ms. Monday, commissioners? No. Okay, Mr. Popple is here.
Yes, sir.
Is there anything you'd like to say, sir?
I just want to thank the city and council for 19 years of support of Fox's Pizza and look forward to being a viable part of continued growth and development of our beautiful city.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Popple?
Good pizza.
Yeah.
Good pizza.
Okay. All right. Now, thank you.
Make this comment, and I'm quite sure that Ms. Monday has done this, has made you aware that if there are any violations that this commission could, you know.
We were just speaking of that, yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Sure. Commissioner, since this is a public hearing, now I would open this up as a public hearing to ask anyone who wants to come forward and step forward to speak for or against the granting of this alcohol beverage license. And then when you do step forward, please state your name and your address, and you have 2 to 3 minutes to comment. Those who are in attendance at Old City Hall with us.
So you're open on Sunday, but closed on Monday, is that correct?
Currently she's open Monday through Saturday, but I'm going to be opening on Sunday. So.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Okay, so that's why the Sunday sales. Thank you.
Well, I'm hearing crickets. Okay, Madam Clerk, are there anyone that's online virtually who would like to speak for or against the granting of this alcohol beverage license?
No one online.
Okay, thank you. So no one online, we will close that public hearing out, and Commissioner is back in our lap here as a what's your will and pleasure?
I'll make a motion that we approve the new alcohol beverage license for Fox's Pizza for on-premises consumption of beer and wine with Sunday sales.
Second.
Motion second for the approval of this new alcohol beverage license for Fox Pizza for on-premises consumption of beer and wine with Sunday sales. Any further questions or comments on it?
How soon will it be open on Sunday?
I'm hoping the first of the year.
Good, thank you.
Any other further comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposers? I was wondering, how can you oppose good pizza? There's no opposers?
It's really good pizza.
That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Monday.
Thank you, Commissioner.
All right. Okay, moving right along. We at item number 4, update roadway resurfacing of various city streets. Our Public Works Director and City Engineer, Mr. Garrett Aberson, is presenting.
Good evening. Just want to give you a quick update on the roadway project. As you know, we had a pavement condition assessment completed back in the spring of this year. Had a consultant come in, they evaluated every mile, every foot of roadway that we have in the town and assigned a grade to that. And then assigned it a category, either excellent, good, fair, poor, or critical or lost. About 25% of our roadways were in the top category of good or excellent. The majority, almost 70%, were in the fair condition, and the bottom 6.5% of our roadways were critical or lost. So with that information in hand, then Mr. Duffy set aside $1 million from our ARPA money and said we wanted to use this for roadway paving and bringing some of these roads back into better condition. So that's where we're headed right now. We're pulling together the details of a contract for some roadway paving and resurfacing and improvements. I've included in the packet there the listings from the lost and the critical categories from the assessment spreadsheet. One thing to note there, I've highlighted the ones in yellow, which are several lost and several critical ones. Those are being addressed with the Magnolia Park project. So we do have several in the works, and that project will be completed around June or July of 23. But then we're using these two categories, the lost and the critical categories, as our base list for the paving improvements. We're taking these streets and we're in the process of now of going through and fine tuning the details of this contract, confirming the lengths and widths of the roadways. Will it need milling ahead of time? Will it need leveling ahead of time? Will it, what kind of striping treatment will it need after we're done? Those kind of things. Fine tuning all of that, putting our cost estimates together. We plan to finish that over the holidays and get this out to bid to the paving contractors mid-January.
The full amount?
Yes, ma'am, for the entire $1 million contract. That will go out to the contractors in January. Typically 30 days of advertising, so we should be back to you in mid-February with a paving contract for approval. So like I said, we're using these streets as our base to start with. If it turns out we can go a little further, there are more streets in the critical category, so we'll just kind of keep moving down that category there, keep adding to those, and you know, like we do with every paving contract, try to address our worst streets, you know, first, and move forward that way.
One question.
Mm-hmm.
You said that the ones that are highlighted in yellow are Magnolia Park, correct?
Yes, sir.
You got one that's not in Magnolia Park highlighted.
Yeah, Wildwood.
Yeah,
I believe.
Wildwood.
Yeah, I think I got that confused with Woodland.
Okay.
So, but Wildwood will be on the paving list we're putting together.
I'm kind of familiar with that street.
Yeah, I bet you are.
We got to tell this. That's why I asked the question.
So
okay. No, you have got a list, and I know some of the streets that I have asked you to take a look at. I don't see any of them on here. So, what happened to the list?
We do have a list of streets that have been reported to that we're adding to this as well. They're not shown on this critical or lost
section, but we are adding those. I know there are a couple in Riverside that have been reported that need to be addressed, and we are including those. I know
there was one right there off of Wildwood too, around that lake that I remember was really bad.
Lakeside Avenue, right?
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, Lakeside.
Right.
Yeah, it's hard to tell what stretch of any of this roadway might be. Does the ID number correspond to anything, or is that just a random?
It's just a random number assigned by the system or by the software.
Well, let's just take it for instance. I mean, like one of these roadways, not one that's in Magnolia Park.
Mm-hmm.
Would it be, you know, a section in a, let's say a 3-block area, and then you go 5 blocks down and there's another section?
Yes, ma'am.
So that would all be all inclusive of that particular roadway?
Right. We would likely, in order to stretch our money out, instead of paving, you know, 10 blocks of a road, we'd pave the 3 blocks down here, which may be the worst, and then move up to the other end and pave 3 or 4 up there, whichever the is, you know, as long as that middle section is, you know, is in good enough shape to be left alone.
And are there any stormwater improvements that are part of this, or is this strictly just paving?
There are a few stormwater improvements, and that's one of the things we're looking at as we're going through and fine tuning this is, you know, aprons around drain inlets, curb work there where curb may be displaced for whatever reason, settlement and that kind of thing. And most of that will be work that we'll do in-house with our crews, but we'll be handling that leading up to the paving contract and the contractor getting in here. But there are some minor things that we'll be doing.
Okay.
And then we'll also distribute this list to Joint Water and Sewer and have them make sure that there's nothing, they don't have anything under these streets that they would need to open the street up for before we resurface it.
Okay, thank you.
And if there's any streets that you all identified, just like Commissioner Kaysen, we will add those and look at them and kind of review the list. And we want to make our money go as far as it can at this point. And we also will look at some restriping on some of the streets that we, you know, that are in good condition, but just need the striping redone.
We got plenty of those. Thank you. Garrow Habersham Street is really in bad shape. How much of Habersham Street is going to be accomplishable?
We will get the portion in the Magnolia Park section that will be done with Magnolia Park. And then this project here will include the remainder from, I think it's Line Street all the way up to the city limits.
It is really bad. I was out there this morning.
Yep, it is.
It's a rough road to travel.
It is, and it's heavily traveled with a lot of heavy traffic on it too. So
what about Townsend to the city limits?
Townsend to the city.
Townsend on Habersham.
The south end down there?
Yes. Yeah. To go from there, from Townsend all the way to going north.
There, and we do look at, I have that on my list to look at. Part of that is in the county. The city and county boundary runs through there, but you know, whatever's in the city, we'll certainly look at addressing. And it may be that we, to avoid a small section of county road, maybe, you know.
Why don't you coordinate with the county and
that's what I'm saying. We'll just work with them and pave the whole thing, and you know, we'll get it back from them somewhere on the other side.
I think that'd be great. We could do it that way. You could take it all the way down to Community Road then. If the county wants to help out with the paving.
Right.
Okay, you coordinate that.
Okay.
That makes sense. Yes.
How much notice will we give to residents on a given street when work's about to begin? And then generally speaking, how long will that take?
Notice, we will give them as much as we can. You know, we'll try to give them a week or so notice, get vehicles.
Through signage?
We can do signage. Sometimes we go through with flyers or door hangers, getting that out. Social media, that kind of thing, websites. We give them as much notice as we can. These paving contractors, can be funny sometimes. You know, they'll tell you, okay, we're going to be in here next week, and the weather changes over here where they were paving, and here they are tomorrow ready to go to work. So, you know, we will give people as much as we can.
Okay.
Can be tough to manage
I guess
sometimes.
to the degree we can utilize our NPAs to get the word out too, if it's in their particular neighborhood area.
We can, and as soon as the contract goes out, you know, we can give them the heads up, hey, this is coming over the next couple of months and whatnot. You know, we may not be able to give them a specific date, but at least they'll know it's coming and try to maintain contact with them.
Yeah,
sure. Gero, so, thank you. You have any other comments?
I know, so that's it. We'll be back in probably mid-late February with a contract for approval. Go from there.
Thank you. And thank you for looking out for our roads. Thank you, the city manager too, as well. And trying to, we want to make all our roadways as good as possible for our residents who travel on those roads. And I also want to thank you all too for making the sidewalks great, doing the sidewalks too. That really, really helps out. So thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Let's move right along. We are now at item number 5 on the category item to be considered for approval. Consider approval of December 1st, 2021 work session and regular scheduled meeting minutes. It was in our package. Hopefully everyone had an opportunity to take a look at it or whatever. And entertain a motion, please.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to offer a motion that we accept our minutes as presented.
Second.
Motion second to accept both minutes as presented. Any further questions or comments? I just want to make one comment is that I noticed that about the air quality that was like presentation by the Georgia Department of Natural Resources, that we wanted that to be to give good information to our citizens concerning the smells that was coming from downtown. Hopefully that we move forward with that, we can come to find a solution to that issue. So, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposes? Hearing none from the opposing side, I believe that motion carries. Thank you, commissioners. Item number 6, consider approval of 26 alcohol license renewal. Ms. Mundy, our deputy marshal, is here to present again.
Yes, sir. Tonight I do have 26 businesses that have applied for renewal of their alcohol license and permits. I also have 1 violation to report, one of which is included in the renewal list. These permits vary from beer, wine, and distilled spirits, retail sales, on-premise consumption, and some including Sunday sales. The applicants have been submitted all the necessary paperwork. Complete reviews have been conducted on the owners and managers. Nothing negative that has been found on any application that would prevent them from possessing an alcohol license.
Okay. You say it was 26 that?
Yes.
26 and 1 or 25 and 1?
25 and 1.
25 and 1. Okay, Commissioner, let's take the first 25. If you
which is the one that we need to pull out?
Fountain package.
Fountain packages. Okay.
On the very bottom.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone have any comments against the 25 that's been presented here on in our package? If not, I intend a motion for approval of the 25 alcohol license renewals.
Yes, sir.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second for the approval of the 25 alcohol license renewals as presented. Any further questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposers? It's none. All right, that motion carries. Now, Ms. Mundy, tell us about the last one.
The violation is for an underage sale for the fountain package. This is their first offense. Fountain package was last tested for underage compliance in 2018 and had no violation. The owner was sent a certified letter to appear here tonight, and he is here. Their next scheduled court date is January the 5th of 2022.
Okay, thank you. Will the owner please step forward and you can speak for yourself if you like.
My name is Hiran Wasoya. I'm the manager for the fountain package. First time since we have a store, we received the ticket by the new employee. They did a mistake. So,
okay. I would like to ask you, what measures have you taken to ensure that this doesn't happen again?
We give a warning to all, we give a notice to all our employees, make sure without check ID, because sometimes they say, oh, I know them, they know them, but doesn't matter. They have to check the ID of every single person. Okay. If they looks under 50, 40, you know, we try to.
Yes, sir. Commissioner, you have any questions for Mr. Patel?
So that's part of your training now for new employees. Yeah. We take it pretty seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any questions for Mr. Patel? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
Does anyone else here would like to speak? Mr. Cook?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Gary Cook, 2110 Claremont Lane, Brunswick, Georgia. I'm just, well, of course, it's my employment, so I'm gonna be highly in favor of it. But I'm highly in favor of it because, you know, I'm one that get cursed out all the time. Because they say, you just asked me my idea. I said, well, I just don't remember. And I need to see it. And this young lady, I actually left at 10 o'clock, and I think she might have got that ticket probably 20 minutes after that, because I called back and said, listen, y'all, make sure y'all check. And so sometimes, you know, they get busy, distributors coming in, and this would happen that morning, you know, and that happened. But I can't say it won't happen again, but I guess it's in your hand if it do happen again, you know, Commissioner. So I just hope that y'all just take that into consideration. You know, we haven't had one, you know, and we've been pretty good.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. So, Commissioner, as you have heard from the owner and also one of his employees about some of what has happened, and I believe the hearing he has is coming up later. Am I right?
For the actual citation, yes, has not gone through the court system yet. So this is just, as we've done, I think we just did it recently, maybe last month, bring these to the commission as soon as possible, because we did implement the new ordinance that sets forth that if it's the discretion of the city for a first-time offense, the licensee, it's a $150 fine and 6 months probation. That's our process. There's a separate process that will follow through with the legal.
Right. But it's up to our discretion to do that, right?
It is. It is a discretionary matter. It is not a shall, it's a may.
All right. Well, Commissioner, it seemed to be, have this happened before at this establishment before?
No. They were tested last in 2018 and they passed the test.
Okay.
What did we do on the last one?
We followed the ordinance.
That's correct.
And let's follow the ordinance.
Well, what's your will and pledge, commissioners? How you want to deal with this?
I'll make a motion that we follow the ordinances we've set in place, and based on the court's finding.
No. It would be.
The court hasn't found anything.
It's totally separate from
pending upon. We don't have to do anything pending.
And the last, what was just asked about, the last instance, it would be, I believe it would be a motion to approve the renewal of the license with the addition of the first-time offense pursuant to the ordinance, which would be a $150 fine and the 6 months probation.
So stated, so moved.
Oh,
Thank you.
Okay. Motion has been second for the approval of this alcohol beverage license, and also to follow our guidelines and our ordinance as well, which means a fine of $150 and 6 months probation for this this organization.
I have one question. Will they be tested, or will there be?
Yes, from my understanding, the state will do a test within 6 months.
Okay. Unannounced.
Unannounced.
At will.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
I'm sure they won't do it again.
You sure they will? Yeah. Okay.
I'm sure they won't. I don't think they'll do it. We've not had a problem before.
Yeah, yeah.
Any other comments? Well, I got one comment. The comment I have is being the fact that for as long as they've been in resistance and in existence and haven't had a violation. However, as we follow our ordinance, we still need to continue to have some type of consistency. I imagine it will be if we didn't have no consistency. That's the reason, I imagine. Any other comments? Okay. All in favor of the motion that was presented, second, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposes? No opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Ms. Monday, please, or the plaintiff is here, the owner, let them know, and we'll move right along. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And thank you so much for coming.
Have a good night.
All right. All right, let's move right along with the item number 6. Consider approval of resolution number 2021-21, designating Albany Street as an honorary street for Ahmaud Arbery. Ms. McDuffie is gonna present that for a second or two.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. This request was made to present a brief resolution honoring Ahmaud Arbery by designating Albany Street, the full length, as Ahmaud Arbery Honorary Street. I don't have to go into great detail because we are all aware of his life and legacy in this community. And I didn't know if you wanted to read the resolution.
Yes, I can read the resolution. If it says, whereas the city of Brunswick intends to honor citizens who have contributed to the history, culture, and identity of our community, whereas the city commission recognized that the late Ahmaud Arbery has become a symbol of strength and unity within our community, and whereas Ahmaud Arbery's untimely death led to our community coming together and resulted in local citizens and organizations working to ensure that common ground was found and progress was made to advance justice and civil rights in Brunswick and in Glenn County. Be it hereby resolved by the Board of Commission for the City of Brunswick that by passing of this resolution, the Board of Commissioners for the City of Brunswick to designate Albany Street as the honorary Ahmaud Arbery Street in recognition of his legacy to the city and around the world. Therefore, be resolved that the resolution be effective upon adoption this 15th day of December 2021, and it will be signed by me if so approved and attested by Naomi Act Council if so approved. So, commissioners, I brought this to the commission our last meeting and was looking for any approval or disapproval to do this. This was brought to my attention by the family and also by state representatives and some of the leaders here in Brunswick as well. So I said we will put it before the commission to do that. The commission has the authority to name honorary streets. So it is here. Are there any questions or comments before I ask for a motion? No comments. Therefore, I'll entertain a motion, please.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to offer a motion that we approve resolution number 2021. It's 2020-21, resolution designating Albany Street as the honorary Ahmaud Arbery Street in the city of Brunswick.
Second.
Motion second for resolution 2021-21, designating Albany Street as honorary street for Ahmaud Arbery. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none. Madam Clerk, please call the roll for me, please.
Commissioner Casey?
No.
Commissioner Martin?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Harris?
Yes.
Mayor Harvey?
Yes. Commissioners, that motion carries 4-1. Thank you so much. I will sign the petition, I'll sign the resolution, and we will get that.
Please invite us when you get ready to unveil the first sign.
Oh. Yeah, and please invite Commissioner Williams when you unveil the first sign, please.
You're gonna be there.
And Mayor Harvey. So thank you. And move right along. Item number 8, consider approval of indemnification agreement with Prime South Bank. Ms. Kathy Mills, are you aboard?
I am.
All right, it's on you.
Okay. As you know, we recently changed our processing for our payroll checks to ADP. And so they are handling all of our ACH deposits. And also we have about 35 employees who do not use our direct ACH deposit and choose to have paper checks. Previously, those checks were drawn on our payroll account at Prime South. So it was no problem for our employees to go to Prime South and have those checks cashed. But now they are drawn on Wells Fargo, which is the bank that ADP uses. And Prime South will continue to cash those payroll checks as long as we sign an indemnification agreement with them stating that they will not be any subject to any losses. I did run the agreement by the city attorney, and he had one small change that Prime South was happy to make on the indemnification agreement. I don't think there's much risk here. Out of those 35 employees, there may be 15 that go over to Prime South and cash their checks. This is mostly people that don't have a banking relationship anywhere, but some of that 35 probably cashes them at grocery stores or other retail establishments. So the nearest Wells Fargo is now over on St. Simon's. And so we thought it would be helpful for those employees who do need to be able to cash their checks. For one thing, they're not charged a fee for cashing, which is the case at some retail outlets. So that's what we're looking to have this indemnification agreement signed, and for Prime South to continue cashing those payroll checks for our employees.
Okay, Commissioner, any comments, questions for Ms. Mills?
I don't necessarily have a question for Ms. Mills, but I had been contacted by employees who don't work, they're city employees, but they don't work under the roof of City Hall. They're at other locations, and just complaints that communication to those employees was not the best in working through these changes and notifying and letting them know what the payroll changes were with ADP, all of that. So I wanted to make that statement on their behalf. I don't know how that was communicated, and I know it's a little bit different from what, but I just wanted to make sure that that was addressed and that we don't overlook employees that are not under the roof of City Hall when things are changed. Thank you.
Well, probably the ones that were under the roof were probably as confused as the ones who were in some of the outlying areas. I mean, we did send people out to train them, but this was a totally new program for all of us. And, you know, we have a fairly complicated payroll system with paying police and fire who have totally different rules than, than the rest of the employees do. So there were some kinks that had to be worked out. I will definitely admit that. But we are going into our third payroll now, and hopefully the majority of those have been worked out. But if they need further training, we're happy to do that. Each of the admin assistants at Fire, Police, and Public Works were given some training to help the employees that were out there. I do apologize if there were any problems, but that's not unusual, although we would have preferred there not to be. But whenever you're going to a new system like this, there are going to be some snafus, but hopefully everybody did get paid. So, you know, hopefully going forward, things will be better. And we did it to make it easier for them actually, and clocking in and out. But there was a learning curve there.
Yeah, and we put information in the newsletter and posted at the departments, and we try our best to make sure the departments are covering all of their employees, but we probably can just continue to try and communicate that.
Yeah. Thank you.
How many weeks has this been in place?
Tomorrow or Friday will be our third pay period.
Third pay.
Yeah, so
yeah, it's going pretty good.
Pardon?
It's going good.
It is. One of the complications for the first two pay periods is that there were holidays in both of those pay periods. And like I said before, there are some very different guidelines. It's not like we can just tell them, okay, every employee gets paid this amount or for a holiday pay, because there are very different rules for fire and police as to what they get paid on holiday pay. So this week that we're paying on Friday went much easier because you know, there were no holidays, but hopefully that's becoming straightened out now too. So it is saving us a lot of time over in the finance department. Like I said, they do all the ACH, they do all the federal tax deposits, and they print the payroll checks. So
I guess we've done away with a payroll clerk.
No, we have not, because the payroll clerk still has to go in and check everything and make sure that that when the time cards are coming in, they're correct, that everybody's getting paid. So there's still some things there. Our plan, you know, she also is the person who does our accounts payable, which, you know, is a pretty big job in and of itself, but we have plans for other things for her to do. One of those being—
That used to be 2 people.
That did used to be 2 people.
Yeah, I agree.
And we're also scanning all the copies of accounts payable now, which takes, you know, a good bit more time, but it's certainly a lot easier whenever you need to go back and look at an invoice. So there's plenty of things for her to do.
Good, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, then I entertain a motion to for this to help our employees out as they try to cash their payroll checks.
I'll make a motion that we approve the indemnification agreement with Prime South Bank in the city of Brunswick.
Second.
Motion second for the approval of the indemnification agreement with Prime South Bank, excuse me, in Brunswick. Are there any further questions or comments?
I have a question. Is there any whisper in the air about Wells Fargo coming back to the mainland?
Not necessarily.
No, I believe that is I believe that's permanent. I believe it'll remain an ATM. It'll be an interactive ATM, and that is it.
Yeah, I know they can't come back
to close 50 offices this year. Is what it's not just here in Brunswick. It's all over the country.
It's a boogie trying to get over there to cash a check. I don't go over there, but I'm just saying what other people have told me.
Okay, any further comments? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposers? Hearing none, I believe the ayes have it. That motion carries. All right, we're at item number 9. Consider approval of the 9 Glen Avenue Enterprise Zone application. Mr. Travis Stiegel, are you on board to present?
Yes, sir, I am. And I am going to be sharing my screen also.
Yes, sir.
So this is a enterprise zone for, well, first of all, sorry, does everyone see the screen?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So this is a enterprise zone application for Project 9 Glen Avenue, which is being redeveloped by the Strategic Accounting Group. This will be their their corporate headquarters that will be located here in Brunswick on 9 Glen Avenue, right on, of course, Highway 17. The current project capital investment for this particular project is going to be $2.97 million. And so based off of that new value is where we are getting our proposed standard amounts when it comes to tax abatement and fee abatement. I know that there were some changes earlier this morning, and so this is why I'm currently showing you exactly what is on the screen now. That is the updated version of what was approved by the Finance Committee. With this particular enterprise zone application, the prior value of that particular property was around $58,000. The owner of the project, Tim, we spoke again, found out that that prior value of their property was about $97,000. And I don't know where that the difference in the value came. I know that the GIS is showing something a little bit different, but with that said, we're going to say the prior value of the empty lot sitting there now is about $98,000. The new value with the redevelopment is 2.97. The new assessed value will go to 1.188 million in value. That will generate about 15,700 in annual taxes. So with this particular application, we are asking for you to approve what was approved through the Finance Committee is an abated amount of the fees, which was 50% of the fees of $11,732.50. We are asking for a 7-year abatement, even though the abatement can go up to 10 years, but we're asking for a 7-year abatement, with the first 5 years being 100%. The next 2 years, year 6 and year 7, being 80%, which will bring our total abatement to this particular project of $115,326.07.
You said 50% savings on the fees?
Yes, ma'am.
It's showing the 50%. The fees were actually $23,400.
Okay.
Yeah, we only gave them 50% of the requested abatement on
right.
fee.
Yes.
And so
I'm sorry.
I'm going to change your terminology because we are not an approving board. We are a recommending board.
Yes.
Finance Committee is. So we recommend what you have before you.
Is this particular business the sole business that's going to be occupying? It's a standalone one-shot deal. It seems rather expensive.
It's a full investment type of company. Tax preparers,
okay,
and investment. Paul Asher, it stems from the business that Paul Asher had. Now, I don't know if you're familiar, how many of you all are familiar with Paul Asher, but he was a very prominent accountant here in Glenn County. I knew Paul from having worked with him for IRS, but he's deceased, and I forget the young man that now runs the company.
Well,
okay, Tim's on here.
I don't see any information on how the number of new employees and some of the criteria that we look at when we're giving consideration to enterprise zone.
Yeah, it should. So they don't have that's
so the application.
You get a chance to see that.
Yeah, so the application should have been in there, but their total, the total new job creation is going to be for 8. I'm sorry. Yes. What over the next 4 years? Local number of residents that's going to be hired is 5. that payroll for 2022 with that number of employees is about $650,000.
So 5 new employees over and above their current number of employees to date?
Yes. And so it was, I'm sorry.
Does one of you all have that full application in there? Because it also goes to the hiring of Lord, I forget the income
of individuals of low to moderate income.
Yes. So
we didn't get any of that information in
really?
Why isn't it in this package?
Well, we know that the finance committee got all the information.
So yeah, we got all of that.
So we're going on basically knowing that you guys picked it apart, so you guys can tell us exactly what it was.
Well, henceforth,
yes,
it would be good.
It'd be good to give to all the commission as well.
That's the whole point of the enterprise zone is the number of new jobs created and making sure that what we vote on, you know, that we're knowledgeable and we know what the projections are and what we're giving up from a tax revenue or a licensing fee, you know, to gain further down the road.
And I totally agree with you, Commissioner, because I would want to see it as well. Regardless of whether the finance committee looked at it or not, I would want to look at what the finance committee looked at.
Yeah, because at the beginning they were asking for total abatement of the fees and taxes for a 10-year period. And
but we shaved that.
We said that we don't think that would be something that would be, you know, would help the city in any way. So we kind of looked at it and said, you know, we did a 50% on the abated fees, abatement on the fees, and then a 7-year tax abatement, then, well, 5 years, and then starting the increments at 80% and going on from there to full tax.
So, Mr. Stiegel, do you have anything you can share with us on the screen?
Yeah, I sure will. Give me 1 second.
So while he's doing that, Paul Asher has been located over on St. Simon's. Is that right?
That's where he started out at.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, and so they're moving from St. Simon's to Brunswick?
I thought they were already in Brunswick.
No.
Over. Yeah, they're at 4 Glen Avenue.
Yeah, they're right next door.
Yeah, and they just bought that property and they're building their headquarters.
Okay. So when Paul Asher passed away, they sold his business and they came on over to Brunswick?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah. And I wish they did have that information because it is a really good package and the benefits that are going to be, that the city's going to receive. Okay, so Travis.
Package was real good.
Yeah.
Very impressed.
All right. Let's see.
Increase in value on that property is.
All right. So here's a copy of the application of the 9 Glen. Application right here. Commissioner.
So it's a real estate holding company.
It's a combination of several type investments. And inclusive of an accounting firm as well.
So the accounting firm, the accounting firm is a full-fledged accounting firm, right? For everything from general accounting through the investment accounting. The size of the building is going to be their primary headquarters in the building. Okay. What we can't control or can't say that they can't do is they can't rent out any other space. You know, for some odd reason, they may have, you know, a few other offices that will be available in this particular building. So we can't say they're not going to do that. But this is their primary location. They could have chosen to leave the city of Brunswick when they sold the building that they're in, but they decided that they would like to stay here in the city.
How many stories will this building be, Travis?
If you give me a second, I want to say that this building should be about 2 stories.
I would say for that, they'll be going vertical is what I would say.
Yeah, it's not going to be a very audacious building at all. It's going to be very, you know, conducive to the buildings that surround it. So, excuse me, let me get to the.
This is right next to Cito. Is that where we're talking about?
Yes. Yep. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
It's where Dr. Hornbuckle's Golden Miles Animal used to be. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we lost a historical piece there in that building.
They got hit during the hurricane, the flooding, and yeah.
Yeah, it's just a 2-story building.
Commissioner Kaysen, as you're able to see here, this is the 2-story building.
Cool. Looks good. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Stiegel, I caught sight during the verbiage before you were scrolling to try to find the schematic of the building. It said there were 4 sub-offices. So does that mean those are 4 rentable offices within the building?
Yes.
Application.
Yes. Like we said, a building of this size, you know, there is a possibility of them not having usage of all of those buildings. But as it said in this last sentence here, those tenants could include insurance, other services, financial services, or mortgage lending.
And the premise that was relayed to us is it's like a mini financial center.
Right. And, you know, and part of this development, we also have to understand too, part of this development, you know, because of the cost of land and the value, sometimes you have to, financially, it's more feasible to build to a certain size opposed to, you know, building to a smaller size. And so I think that they've gotten to the right size that did a couple of things, made the value of the building correct, and also make the cash flow, because generally what tends to happen in projects like this, the only reason why people come for an enterprise zone application is to try to make the cash flow numbers work with their banking, with their institution. And as you can see, you know, Prime South has already agreed to fund this project.
Right. So I'm just trying to get a handle on the, you know, if there's 5 new jobs that are being created, do those include any new jobs that the 4 sub-tenants, that the 4 sub-offices are going to have, which includes insurance services, financial investing, and mortgage lending? Are there new employees that would be part of those groupings, or is it just 5 new employees under the umbrella of the strategic partners?
So I would say, for the sake of the application, they can only really talk about what they're going to do with their businesses. But I can only imagine that when these 4 offices are rented to both the insurance companies, the financial investment companies, and the mortgage companies, that a level of employees will also come with them, right? And not only will a level of employees come with them, but I can also think that those incomes will vary from originators to administrative assistants all the way up to the executives and the CEOs in that particular building. So I am pretty sure that as those 4 offices become rented based off of the small businesses that are here, that generally are going to employ 3 to 5 individuals, unless they're restaurants. but that they will include more employees there. But would like to say, for the sake of the application itself, you only really speak on the jobs that you're going to create.
Right. So, okay, then that answers my question. Thank you.
Any other questions to Mr. Stegall on the enterprise zone application for 9 Glen Avenue? If not, I'll entertain a motion, commissioners.
I would just like to make sure that we hear from our city manager on her thoughts of this application.
Thank you. We did review this application, and based on other applications that we looked at, we felt like it was consistent. There was some changes recommended, which we accepted from the Finance Committee, and we thought it was a fair application to put forth. Thank you.
Okay. Also, Finance Committee, if you like to say something, you can as well.
I would just simply say that, you know, I think that we've vetted this and looked at it in the best interest of the city. And I would hope that in the future, and I think I said this to Commissioner Harris, that the Finance Committee will continue to look at these and deal fairly with the individuals who come forth for the enterprise zone abatements and such as that. So I think that
we're assessing these, and that's why we decreased the requested fee abatements, because we are still trying to be pro business, but still yet not deplete the resources that the city has come in financially. And so predicated upon the size, the amount of the investment, the increase in value of this property versus the abatements that are going to be granted, I think it's a win-win situation overall in the increase in our general fund and the property taxes that we're going to be receiving from this investment. So we took in consideration all of those factors. While we want to be pro-business, we still have to be mindful that we're not giving the kitchen away out of the house.
Okay, thank you. Hearing from our city manager and also from the Finance Committee, Commissioner, I'll entertain a motion now, please.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to offer a motion that we approve the enterprise zone petition from 9 Glen Avenue.
Second.
Got a motion, got a second for approval of the 9 Glen Avenue enterprise zone application as presented by Mr. Stegall, and also comments by city manager and the Finance Committee. Are there any further questions or comments? Hearing all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposers? Hearing none, I believe the ayes have it. That motion carries. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, Finance Committee. Thank you, our city manager, for our due diligence. Now we're at item number 10, city attorney items. Consider adoption of ordinance number 1074, which is called the short-term rental ordinance. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Before you is the second reading of the City of Brunswick's potential short-term rental ordinance. I think we did a rather comprehensive presentation at the last meeting. It has been properly advertised. We have not received any additional comments. We have already started the discussion, at least from the city, internal city and county perspective, of maybe talking about getting information from this county for the vendor, the third party that they use to help administer their short-term rental ordinance. Nothing's in stone, of course, until we pass this, but if there's any additional comments, questions, or concerns, I'm here to answer those questions.
I have a couple. One is in reference to number 5.
On page.
Well, hold on. it had to do with I felt like maybe there should be specific reference to the city's noise ordinance.
It should be in there.
It is in here.
It said you have to comply with the city's noise ordinance, but I thought if we could cite where somebody can find that noise ordinance, it might be helpful.
A citation to the actual City of Brunswick Code of Ordinances?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I can do that.
And then there's no guesswork about it. And I had a question, but I think as I continued to read through it again, this runs on a calendar year as opposed to a fiscal year, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah. Okay. So July 1st, as far as their initial.
Be the same as a business license.
Yeah.
So that's correct. So this year, so the upcoming calendar year from January 1st to July 1st will be an open period where the city will be implementing these, putting together the application forms, and hopefully getting a third-party vendor on board. It will go into effect on July 1st. That would be when I expect the first round of applications. So from July 1st to the end of the year would be a prorated application fee. And then after that, so you'd have that app, you'd have your license from July 1st to December 31st. And then during that time period, you'd also be reapplying for January 1, 2023 to December 31st, 2023. So yes, it would roll like a business license would roll.
Yeah.
22, 23, yes.
Okay. And then there was a reference to affirming, hold on and I'll tell you what page. You want the page of the document?
Yes. Would be
in page 7.
Okay.
Something pops up on my screen and I can't get rid of it. It talks about timely remittance of taxes due of the accommodation tax.
Which number, Julie?
It's on page. It's
Yeah,
number
7.
9. Sorry,
Number 9. Okay.
Number 9 on page.
Affirm the applicant responsible to
7.
collect and timely remit accommodation excise tax.
According to the orders.
So essentially what that's stating is that the applicant will affirm, meaning certify, place under oath that they will be willing to collect and remit accommodation excise taxes in accordance. So you see there, the ordinance sections 20-26 through 20-36 reference back to our accommodation taxation portion of our code of ordinances. So the internally located therein is where they would be regulated or directed as to how to remit hotel motel taxes.
Okay.
Okay.
And then I think my last question is, and we talked about this a little bit at our last meeting, but has the feasibility of this new ordinance been studied so as to determine that the cost to the city to administer and regulate is more than covered by the tax revenue generated?
I don't think there has not been like a feasibility study sought out and completed. I would say this, that based on, we've been receiving accommodation taxes from the larger corporate, like Airbnb type rental entities. And I would think that it would rather easily, so there's two ways of looking at that, of course, is that the accommodation taxes that the city would be paying or would be receiving is one source of revenue. The second would be that, you know, the purpose of the fee that the city is assessing towards the access application and completion or receipt of the accommodation tax certificate, really that $75 or $150 for the full year, 75. That's where any costs incurred by the city would be recouped immediately. So I think that portion of it addresses the administrative costs internally to the city. And then as you look at what accommodation taxes are remitted, I think that's sort of on top of what, you know, by right, the city has the ability to tax and collect. So not doing so through this ordinance would sort of be leaving, I think, that source of revenue
on the table,
Right.
or unknown,
I just
essentially.
don't want to travel down a road that we incur a whole lot of expense and then realize, well, gosh, we don't really have as much revenue in the balance to offset, even though we charge a fee for the application on the front end. I think the county did some sort of a quick count, and maybe Ms. Thompson can provide some further information on that, but where they went online and just did a quick survey of how many Airbnbs and VRBO properties there were. Of course, there's quite a few on the island because that's the resort area, but I just want to make sure that we're prudent about moving forward, and that the revenue and the fees that we're putting in place is more than going to offset contracting with a third party or bringing on additional staff to administer the whole thing.
No, is the county
that the audit committee has some detail on that? They have asked for this for a long, long time.
It's true.
Yes.
They very well could have some information.
I could follow up with Mr. Kitts. He's been one of those that has been spearheading this. And I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest, if he has done his own internal feasibility study.
It would just be good to have a little
I think so.
Information on that. It doesn't have to be overly detailed.
And again, we have built in a 6-month time period. I mean, there wouldn't be nothing from stopping if it turns out, and I wouldn't expect it to, but if it did turn out that there's a overwhelming cost related to the collection, that we could repeal, we could amend, we could do what would be necessary if we needed to shrink this down and make it as simple as possible.
And then my final question, because Commissioner Williams brought this to us and has been a good thing, is should the appeals for a violation be handled by the Planning and Appeals Board rather than the Board of Commissioners? Because again, you're going to get into some nitty-gritty stuff, and it's going to take the time of the commission to work through all that versus it going to the Planning and Appeals Committee, since it sort of falls under planning anyways.
And that takes the politics out of it also, and I like that.
So I'm just want to put that out there for consideration, that if we feel that maybe it could be handled more effectively and timely in the Planning and Appeals Board, as opposed to coming all the way to the commission to be
I would think that would be a good idea. And the other part would be if the individual wants to appeal whatever the planning commission said, then they could bring it to the city commission.
So that would be my suggestion, is that we utilize the Planning and Appeals Board rather than.
Can we designate that too? That
I'm not sure. They have very specific powers that they were granted when their ordinance was put into place. So I would need to go back and look at that before I make a decision on that. I mean, they have specific items that they address: variances, conditional use, rezoning, and then even then they're only they're a recommending board to this board. So I would hesitate to put them in the role of sort of a judge, jury, executioner. I mean, they would be now asking potentially to be punitive in nature if there was a violation brought. So I don't know. I would like to look into that and maybe bring that back.
Well,
because I've pictured this as what we're doing here is granting them essentially a business license, similar to what we just saw with an alcohol license. If there's a violation at that level, they bring it to the city commission. So if something has occurred, they've violated it, then they would come before the city commission, just like as we saw. They could request a hearing if there was a negative, a punitive measure taken by the city commission. That's how I would view it. The Planning and Zoning Board is a review board for again, like I said, the variance is conditional use and rezoning. Really, they're looking at land use as opposed to any sort of, these are quasi-criminal violations that we'd be looking at with a short-term rental, but I can look at it at least and bring it back.
Yeah, if they could at least be a first look, maybe that would be helpful, but I mean, it's hard to know how many violations there might be. And
well, let's hope there's not any.
Yeah, right.
Brian, should there be something in here about ADA compliancy?
I mean, there is a catch-all in here that the unit must be in violation of any and all state, local, building codes, building regulations. I mean, I wouldn't hesitate if that is a requirement for rental. I would think it might need to be ADA compliant, but I'm not sure. I mean,
can you take a look in and see
yes,
what
I will.
It looks like?
Yep.
It seems we're not ready for this yet. It's not ready.
I'll make a motion to defer.
It seems not ready for prime time. So I do have a motion to defer this until the next meeting, which will give our city attorney time to flush out the questions that's been asked by this commission. Can I get a second on that deferment?
If I could, could I ask that? Sorry, Mayor Pro Tem. Could I ask that it be on the second meeting in January?
Second meeting is fine. Second meeting is fine. His first meeting would be a lot of.
Yes, Lord.
We need to have another
circumstance.
Public hearing.
We would probably. I think we need to re-advertise if I make changes.
I think it would be good.
Okay.
Okay.
Were all of the questions asked that needed to be asked? So when Brian comes back, he'll have all of those addressed.
Okay, well,
good question.
We got a motion, got a second for just that, what you said, Mayor Pro Tem, to our second meeting in January. Any further questions, comments? All in favor, say aye.
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 All right. Opposes? That motion is approved. Madam Clerk, make sure that's deferred until the second meeting in January.
Thank
you. Okay. Our next item number 11, consider approval of city policy procedure regarding use of city seal, logo, and auxiliary city logos for non-city organizations.
Yes. This question, every election cycle, I receive multiple occasions. So on this most recent election cycle, I did some digging and talked to the city clerk's office. By our charter, the city clerk maintains the seal, meaning as a resolution is signed or an ordinance is attested to, she seals it, and that's how it goes there. I did look around to other cities and counties to see if there was any some sort of regulations, and I found actually case law that in the absence of a policy directing how a city wishes its seal, logos, or identifying information to be used, people were able to sort of place it wherever they wish. So I went through and put together a city policy / procedure regarding the use of the city seal, logo, and ancillary city logos by non-city organizations. This does not ban or bar the use, but it does put in a procedural mechanism so that if we receive calls, inquiries into the use of the city seal, the use of a logo, we can direct them. We have a policy in place. This is what you need to do. And if you go through that and it is an appropriate use, then the city can approve it. If you look through on page 1, you see that procedures start at the bottom of page 1. The custodian, of course, is the city clerk's office pursuant to our code 3-13. The city manager shall be the custodian of the official city logo and ancillary logos. Authorized use, the city clerk or designee is authorized to use the city seal in any ordinance resolution. As I stated earlier, that is what our ordinance has already set forth. And the city manager is clearly authorized to use the logo as seen fit in an appropriate manner for city events, notices, social media pages, and et cetera. It does set forth unauthorized uses of the seal and the logo, and then third-party entities. The best way to put this in looking at Atlanta and Savannah, and I think I looked at Rome, Georgia, actually had several ancillary logos, is to allow the use, by community partners. If you have local nonprofits that are putting on events similar, citywide cleanup, Keep Going On is Beautiful, putting something on where they want to show that it's a recognized event by the city of Brunswick. I know we have more, I don't know why I can't think, but like an MPA, if it is putting out an agenda or something like that to show that it is the city recognized neighborhood planning assembly, those types of things would be an appropriate use. Other government agencies, obviously. And then if they had a need, or if there's an organization that had a need to use it, they would apply with the city manager's office. She would have the ability, of course, to look over and determine whether or not it's appropriate. And then as you see at the end, Exhibit A, I went and found as many or all of the various City of Brunswick logos, seals, that would be, it's not non-exhaustive, but these are the type of logos and seals that would be governed by this policy.
So do we need to have the city seal registered at the state level?
We already checked that. You can't register a city seal.
Okay. Hence.
Is it not already?
No, but I mean, the seal, as you see the first one, the black and white or the colorized version, those are the ones I consider to be in the custodial care of our city clerk. The logos, and actually Matthew's left, but the last logo I think is the bicentennial logo. Because it was an artist rendering, I believe they've gone through to either trademark or copyright it so that it cannot be used in any unauthorized locations. But the other two colorized that have some artistic flair, I just felt like needed to be included. Really, I mean, in the truest sense of this, it's to be able to provide some semblance of control. My most recent answer when requested to weigh in on whether or not the use is, yes, it can be used. I mean, there is no policy or procedure in place, so it is an allowable use. I'd prefer to be able to answer that question. There is a policy and procedure in place. Please follow that policy and procedure. And if it is an appropriate use, then by all means. And it's something that I've seen, that I discovered is done in other similarly situated cities.
I mean, is it to think that the city clerk would have to approve whatever is being considered in having that logo on it, or she's going to provide the logo in an electronic format and that's what they have to use?
The seal that Naomi maintains would be only for official city business.
Okay.
The logos that you see on there, the colorized logos that have some artistic rendering, if requested through Ms. McDuffie's office, she would have the discretion to say yes or no.
Okay.
So with this policy being enacted, what's the punitive side of it if they do it and they've not gotten approval?
That's a good question. Good question.
Because there's some people, they don't care if you got a policy in place or not, they'll still go and use it.
I'd agree. I think in typical, we would send a cease and desist letter. In the past, we have had to send some cease and desist letters to individuals that are either utilizing it for purposes that we didn't see fit, or that they've continued to use apparel or badges or something along those lines. And typically a cease and desist letter ends the issue. So I don't know if there's not a specific mechanism, but I think we would seek any and all legal remedies to make sure that there is compliance with this policy.
Well, I know that when during the election season, I kind of came to you and asked you about this, and when you said there was nothing clearly in writing,
that's
or,
right,
or anything of that nature, that it was okay to use the city emblem, because I thought it was actually unethical to be able to do that, but at the same time.
And if you notice, I waited until after the election to bring this forward, so it did not seem to be.
Yeah, and I had a couple of people, ask me about it, and I simply said to them, hey, I checked with the city attorney. He said it was okay.
Yep.
So at this point, I believe it was okay. But at this point, I think that if we're going to put something in place, that I think that, it needs to be in place so that individuals will know in the future that, hey, this can't be done, or this can't be used for your personal,
right,
use.
Your personal endorsement.
Right. Right.
And that's the fear, is that you think that there's a personal endorsement,
right,
where there may not,
or there's like the city endorsed.
You don't want to have somebody acting as if there's color of law, or acting of the implied agency on behalf of the city. And that's where the cease and desist letters in the past have been. Someone is presented in a city polo or a city jacket, and we get, of course, it always comes back, and we receive word, hey, there's someone going around in a jacket. They didn't specifically say that they were an agent, but so it just felt right to have something in place so that the questions that are presented are easily answered.
Okay, so what's your will and pleasure, commissioners?
I'll make a motion to approve the policy procedure for the use of the city seal, logo, and ancillary city logos by non-city organizations.
I won't, and that's been second, but I also would like for the punitive side of this to be documented in this as well. We can't just give them this and then not say this is what we're going to do if you violate this.
If I were to, and I understand that, and I think it's something I can easily add to the policy. Would it be acceptable to add that, should there be an unauthorized use, the city will issue a cease and desist letter. If that does not resolve the matter, the city will seek and implement or pursue any legal remedy available to it by law.
Definitely.
Okay. Good.
I will add my motion, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, been properly motion second for approval of the city policy procedure regarding use of the city seal logo, ancillary city logos, and non-city organizations, with the stipulated addition by our city attorney concerning this. Are there any further questions or comments on that? All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposers? Hearing no opposers, that motion carries. Thank you, commissioners. We've come to the end of our printed agenda. I know there is a need for executive session for
litigation and personnel.
For what now?
Litigation and personnel.
Litigation and personnel. I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session for litigation and personnel and come back later for our closeout.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to offer a motion that we adjourn to executive session for litigation and personnel.
Second.
Motion second to go into executive session for litigation and personnel. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No opposed? Okay. We will go into executive session, after which we'll come back and adjourn our meeting. We will go into executive session. Ouch.
It's gonna be the same.
Merit pay for 3 of our city employees that work directly under the commission: our city clerk, our city attorney, and our municipal court judge.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a motion, got a second for merit increases for our city attorney, our city clerk, and our municipal judge. Are there any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposers? Hearing no opposers, that motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to offer the final motion in my tenure as commissioner for dismissal.
Second.
Motion second for dismissal. Are there any comments? Anyone like to say anything before they go?
We're gonna miss y'all, you know.
Thank you guys for 8 great years.
Thank you. It's been real good too.
Real good. Thank you all for your service.
All right. So with that said, I will see you on January the 5th, where we will gavel in the commission and we will give the oath to our new commissioners. Our Mayor Pro Tem will be sworn in again. Commissioner Rowe will be sworn in, and then our new mayor will be sworn in, after which I will give him the gavel and I will give everybody a salute and a Godspeed. And I know this commission would do even greater things. So I love you all. So we out. God bless you. Have a great holiday. Be safe out there.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Yeah, we're done.
Happy, safe, and Merry Christmas.